Professor Meir Statman, it's great to welcome you back to the Rational Reminder podcast.
I'm delighted to be with you and Ben.
It's so great to see you again, and this book is incredible and vast. We're just going to scrape the surface of it today, but let's jump right into it. How does life well-being fit into the study of behavioral finance?
So let me begin with a story. Some years ago, I was speaking to a large group of financial advisors about saving and spending and financial well-being and life well-being. And after my talk, a number of advisors came over to tell me about the need to increase saving and reduce spending, about the danger of giving adult children money without asking them to pay it back, stories about widows who splurge after their husbands die. One advisor, a woman, stood aside and waited for the others to leave. And then she said, "I started to cry when you said it is better to give with a warm hand than a cold one." It turned out that she lent her son some $27,000 for his tuition. And now that he graduated, she asked him to pay by the agreed schedule. Now, that woman didn't really need that money, but she thought that by paying by schedule, it will teach her son very important lessons about financial responsibility and increase his financial well-being. Well, but the son was broke. I mean, at the beginning of his career, and she said that he didn't even have money to pay his to buy his girlfriend an engagement ring. And of course, that relationship between her and her son deteriorated. And so it is a nice illustration of financial well-being and life well-being. That woman had high financial well-being. Her son had low financial well-being. But financial well-being is just one part of life well-being. Other parts include family, mothers, fathers, children, and also marriage, of course, friendship, work, health, education, religion, and more. And so you can see the kind of trade-offs we make. That is, by increasing financial well-being, her financial well-being, she really, one, diminished his financial well-being, and worse, she really created a diminishment of life well-being in that domain of family, parents, and children. And so the point that I am making in this book is that we have to expand our vision, our horizon, to see financial well-being as one element within life well-being. And this, in fact, goes to behavioral finance as I see it. And so we started with standard finance, where people are rational, computer-like rational, caring only about wealth or financial well-being. Then we went to the first generation of behavioral finance, where we said, wait a minute, people are actually bumbling irrational. They want to maximize wealth, but they're too stupid to do that. And so they make all kinds of cognitive errors, overconfidence, excessive fear, and so on. Then I introduced the second generation of behavioral finance, where I said, people care not just about risk and return and wealth, they also care about those expressive and emotional benefits beyond the utilitarian benefits. So they care, for example, about social status. They care about, say, not realizing losses because they don't want to suffer the regret that comes with realizing losses. And now, in that third generation of behavioral finance, I expand the circle of finance. It's not a frontier, it is a circle. And that circle includes everything from standard finance to the third generation, but it is really broad, seeing people as whole persons and caring about their financial well being, but even more so about their life well being.
You mentioned multiple domains of life well-being. Can you talk about the role that finances play?
Yes, so financial well being is really, really important. And there are many books about life well being or happiness that tend to say, well, you know, what is really most important is marriage or friendship and so on. Yes, they are all important, but finances are important for two reasons. One, on their own, they are important. And second, they underlie everything else, all the other domains. And so let me talk for a moment about how they matter by themselves. The more money you have, the higher your life well-being. No ifs and buts. So even people who have wealth of 1 million are not as happy, are not enjoying as much life well-being as people who have 2 million. And it is not just their evaluative well-being. In other words, the part that is the answer to what do you, if you think about your life as a whole, where will you put yourself? At the top, at the bottom, in the middle, and so on. But also the day-to-day emotions of happiness and sadness and anger and frustration. People who have more money, even if it is in the millions, are happier in this sense, this emotional well-being or experience well-being. And so that really matters. The other part is, of course, that financial well-being, finances underlie all of well-being. So think about marriage. Okay, marriage is important. Marriage without money is just on the way to a divorce. That is, you just cannot support a family without money. The kinds of arguments that come because of lack of money make life miserable. And people say, you know, I'd rather divorce. You cannot support children without money. You cannot gain education without money. You can not even enjoy religion without money, because if you're a member of a church or a synagogue, they expect you to pay. And without money, of course, it's embarrassing to go when you have nothing to put into the collection plate. And so it is really important to realize that finances are important on their own and underlying everything else, but finances alone are not sufficient for life well-being. You can be very wealthy and very miserable. God knows we read stories about people whose wealth is in the billion, who are estranged from their children and who are on their fourth marriage. You know, I have less money, but I'm still married to the woman I married more than 50 years ago, and my life well-being, I dare say, is higher.
That statement from the book that finances underlie all the other domains of life well-being is it was striking. I mean, it's almost obvious when you say it, but yeah, very, very interesting point.
Yeah, it is really very important. When I speak to financial advisors, I often say, the biggest risks in life are not in the stock market.
Hmm.
I say, if you want real risk, get married. And if you want more risk, have children. And so people laugh as you do now, because the point is obvious. And yet that point is usually lost when people, financial advisors, investors, speak about finances, and they forget that finances are just a way station
Hmm.
to life well-being.
What a great line. So keep going on that, Meir. Like, what role do you see for financial advisors to help improve our clients' life well-being?
Well, so it is really important, I think, for advisors to move from being financial advisors or wealth managers to be well-being advisors. It is really important for financial advisors to move from how much can you withdraw in retirement, blah, blah, what will the Fed do, to what's going on in your families. What about your children? Are they in their 20s and are squeezed for money? Is it that you have all the money in the world, but you wouldn't give it because you're afraid of spoiling them? Is it the case that you would like to have the money to send the kid to the most expensive university, but the kid won't even go to community college? There are things that are really central to life that can be missed. One advisor a long time ago told me about a couple that came to him, and they said, first, you should know we have a disabled son, and before you start planning for us, you should plan for that son such that he is taken care of long after we are gone. Now, some clients, some prospects will come up front and tell you what goes on in their families, their points of pain. Others will not. And so it is really important for advisors to probe gently, to really move. And you don't have to be a psychologist for that. You just have to be a good friend. Good friends disclose their pains, and the people who listen to them then disclose their pains, and then they can empathize with one another and help. And advisors can help clients with the financial aspects and more. And so it is really both important and does not come naturally to all advisors. One thing that I say, one woman who listened to me, an advisor, she said, isn't it easier for women to cross this line from finances to life than men? And I said, that is generally true. But being able to cross the line from finances to life is a skill that can be learned. I said, here I am shy by nature, but here I am on the stage speaking to hundreds of you. I've learned to overcome my shyness and be able to speak to a large audience, to interact with them. The same thing applies here. And if a self-serving point, if advisors have my book, share it with their clients, it might be a beginning of a conversation, because they can ask, what did you like about it? What do you agree with and what do you disagree with? What do you think about the statement? It's better to give with a warm hand than a cold one. Do you agree that they might bring up the fact that they don't have enough money? That is perfectly okay. You cannot give what you need for yourself. Uh, but they also might say things like, I don't want to spoil my children by giving them money. It will extinguish their ambition. Uh, and then you can get into a conversation. And I say, I don't know if it's uh, tongue in cheek or not, but lots of uh, kids, when their parents pass away, they choose another advisor. They move away from that old advisor who advised their parents uh, for many reasons. But I think that just knowing as a kid that your advisor advised your parents to share the wealth with them when you really need it, when you are in your 20s and 30s, I think is a nice point for them to say, this advisor cares about me and perhaps I should retain him rather than switch.
You talked earlier about how finances on their own are important to life well-being. How important is someone's financial capital relative to the other people around them, to their well-being?
Very important. So you ask yourself, why does a man or a woman with $1 billion want $2 billion? It is more that they can spend in a lifetime. Uh, the answer is that people care about social status. And social status, in many ways, is determined by wealth. And so you will have a situation where you know, my income and your income go up, but the same percentage, our ranking in terms of status stays the same. But if you get a smidgen more than me, then I feel that I am behind and I do need to do something. Now, one thing that you can do, one thing that we all do that is very productive, is to realize that there's more than finances. That is either I'm richer than you or you are richer than me. But I can have a happy marriage and you can have a happy marriage. And my marriage, we don't compare that and say my is about 20% better than your marriage. It is so people move to things that are not comparable, and people compare themselves as much as they can to uh, reference groups, to comparison groups that give them a sense that they are doing fine. I worked with a person who is a money manager and who is worth billions. Well, I am about a million or two short of $1 billion. But we worked really as colleagues. I did not waive my PhD. He did not waive his billions. We were in different domains with different rankings. And so I did not feel that I lag him, and he did not feel that he lags me. We respected each other. That is really what we do. That is, for some people, it is their work, their position in work. Are they executives? Are they just run-of-the-mill workers? For other people, it might be what they're doing for their church, what they're doing in volunteer work, the kind of satisfaction they get there. And so, one, social status matters greatly to well-being. Second, if you choose your comparison group wisely, you can really diminish the kinds of hurts where you feel behind and have a sense that I'm doing just fine. There's really no need for me to run faster than I do.
Interesting. How does the gap between what we have and what we aspire to have affect life well-being?
So there is a very interesting and insightful finding that life well-being, on average, in developed countries, tend to have a U shape that is like the letter U. That is, life well-being goes down from early adulthood till about the mid 50s, and then begins to go up.
Hmm.
And you ask yourself why. Uh, One reason is really about the gap between situations and aspirations. So when you are young, your aspirations tend to be higher than your situation. You don't have much money then, you are still, say, in school. Uh, what you do is using that gap to motivate you, and so you stay in your dorm room and study for the exam rather than go to a party, because you know that by acing that exam and getting into medical school or whatever it is, you are going to enjoy higher well-being in the future. And so that gap can be a motivator. But there comes a point, surely for me in my 70s, where I say, I don't care. That is, it's not that I have accomplished some huge things, but rather I have really diminished my aspirations such that they meet my situation. I kind of look at it and I say, hey, I I am married, I have kids, um, I have a job. Uh, People like me, I like them, and so on. And so, uh, what is happening really is that there comes a point where the having aspirations that are so much higher than your situation is really self-defeating, because it makes you miserable without really motivating you to do better in the future.
You gave an example of self control with the person, I think, studying for their exam. We know that in spending, a lack of self control can be a problem. That's often referenced as the problem to solve. But can too much self control in spending also be a problem?
Absolutely. And so what we have really, the way we get ourselves to save, I'm sure that it applies to the two of you, it applies to me, it applies to all people who are successful in life. It is that we have learned to, for example, uh, put our money in separate mental accounts. So we have income and we have capital, and we move money from income to capital, for example, with 401k. But then we use a self-control rule that says spend income, but don't dip into capital. This is wonderful in getting you to accumulate a lot in this capital mental account. But there really comes a point where your income ceases or goes down substantially as you retire. And now it is time to spend. But those habits of self control and don't dip into capital get to be really part of your life, and they get to be part of who you think you are. And you think that virtuous people save, they don't spend. And so you'll have, when I talk with financial advisors who advise retired people, the problem is not that they overspend. The problem is that you cannot even get them to spend enough on small things. My mother-in-law, she needed a sofa. The sofa she had was really falling apart. But she said, no, it is perfectly fine. I don't really need a new sofa. Well, her kids went out, they bought a new sofa, they tossed out the old one. So she smiled and she said, you are spending your inheritance. Good, the time to spend the inheritance is now. That is when people are old. Yes, replace this shaggy carpet rug that you have, replace that sofa, buy the better tickets to the opera, enjoy yourself. Find out what is joyful for you. For some people, it is a cruise around the world. For me, if I was on a cruise around the world, I think after a few days I would jump overboard. Yeah, it's not for me. But I spend on things that matter to me. If I go long distances over oceans, say from the United States to Israel, I buy business class tickets rather than hope for an upgrade, because sometimes upgrades don't come, and I'm just too old and too well off to be in a coach in this long flight. That really is important. A friend of mine says, if you fly coach, your son-in-law will fly first class. And so that is perhaps sufficient to get people to move and spend.
How do finances affect dating and marriage?
Well, so we like to think that the days when people cared about how much wealth and earnings a mate has have been in the past, uh, but they are not. And in some cultures, like in India, it is explicit. That is in matrimonial advertisements, in dating sites. They say things like I'm looking for a man who is having a stable employment and high earnings and so on. You will see much less of it in a place like the United States. But still, the old stereotypes are real. We have a lot of evidence that marriages where the wife earns more than the husband are less stable than marriages where the husband earns more. It is sad, perhaps, but that is life, and people deal with it in many ways. One is that husbands exaggerate how much they earn, and wives diminish what they actually earn to keep the egos aligned. And so we have that struggle between the traditional roles where husband earns and wife takes care of the kids and the house, and where we want to go, which is where we, husband and wife, are equally good at loading the dishwasher, and we share the raising of kids and cleaning the house equally. It is something to know. It is something to fight against if you are trying to avoid problems in your marriage. It is just simple things. That is, a wife who gets to pick her husband's socks every day, at some point is going to say, it's not the socks, but I don't think that this man really respects me. And if he does not respect me, maybe I should not be his wife.
Yeah, I like the section on respect in marriage in the book. What role does work play in well-being?
So work, of course, we need work unless we are born wealthy, and our parents let us enjoy that wealth early on. We need to work, and so work can be a job, it can be a career, it can be a vocation. When it is a job, I do it because I need the money, I need the health insurance. But if I could, I would quit it right now, and perhaps I'm kind of going to be retire on the job doing the minimum that I can. Whereas a vocation is really where your being is associated with what you do. For me, being a professor is a vocation, that is, I don't need it really for the income anymore, but I do it because a professor is who I am, and a teacher and a scholar is who I am. And so, when I talk about sort of injuries in the domains, uh, some of us have an injury in that work domain, in that we just don't have the skills to move up. We do a menial job, we do a service job that is low level. We are really not happy about it. We really wait for the weekend. Well, you can then use other um, domains like family, where you have a lot of satisfaction, to compensate for the uh, less happy circumstances of your job. But if you are lucky enough to have a vocation, uh, one that pays reasonably well, but really is who you are, uh, that is wonderful. That really enhances well-being by a huge amount.
Two more questions for you, Meir. What effect does education have on life well-being?
So education, beyond getting you better jobs and a higher income, is also one where you develop kind of a curiosity, the habits of learning that last long after college or graduate school. That kind of benefit in your social capital, that you develop a lot of friendships and contacts in college and graduate school that serves you later. The cultural capital, that is, where Bulgaria is, how to dress for an interview, and so on. These are important. But let me talk about one aspect of education that is really important and in many ways sad. I live in Silicon Valley. I am an immigrant myself, of course. There are many immigrants around me from India and from China. They themselves tend to be people with high education. In fact, this is how they got to immigrate. Many of them really push their kids to get into an Ivy League or similar prestigious university. And it works for many, but it makes many others really, really miserable. And the thing is that in terms of financial well-being, graduated from a top university or just an okay university does not really matter much on average. It matters a great deal in prestige and social status. You can put a sticker on your car and say, my son goes to Harvard. But it does not really do much in enhancing well-being. And so it is really important, and people kind of get to see that, to realize that college is just the beginning of adult life, not the end. And by the way, since you are Canadians, you would appreciate the difference. You probably are quite aware of the difference. In the United States, the pyramid of prestige of university is very steep. You have the Ivy Leagues at the top, you have community colleges at the bottom, then you have kind of everyone finding their place in between. People find themselves going to their safety school. They're not really happy, but that's what they'll do. Whereas in Canada, that pyramid is pretty flat. That is, people choose universities not by their total ranking, but rather by what is it that they want to specialize in. Is it creative writing? Is it being a physician? One Canadian woman said, when you go to a physician, do you check where they got their MD? You don't, you assume that they have the medical knowledge necessary to treat you, and you expect them to have that bedside manner. You expect them to be kind to you, to ask you questions, to answer your questions, and so on. And so it is really very important that we remember that again, that life does not end with college. It begins with college. And I have lots of neighbors who are originally from India, and I occasionally have conversations with them, and they get the point. They really change their behavior. And so the son of a neighbor of ours is going to Purdue University. He's interested really in engineering, and Purdue is very well known as high quality in engineering. It does not rank as high as Ivy League, but that son and his parents know what they're trying to do to get a good beginning of life, and this is where he goes.
There's a paper from Neil Ruiz at Northwestern, a 2011 paper, I think, that looks at the top regrets that people have, and education is in the list of top regrets that people have. Why do you think that would be?
Yeah, because education can be really difficult. That is, you go to college, it is hard work. You find that even though you were okay in high school, in college competition is tougher. You feel that you are lagging behind, and you ask yourself, what difference does it really make? And instead of making money by getting a job now, I'm spending money, and so people get discouraged, and they drop out, and it is really very hard later on when you're in your 40s and 50s to go back. You feel that the doors are now closed. They're actually not, and older people who just go back to community college can pick up, and just going to community college gets you many of the benefits of a four-year college, both in income and in that curiosity, those other benefits that you get from just being a student. And so, here as we mentioned before, this issue of self-control matters greatly. And having a group of people around you, both professors and classmates, who encourage you to do your best and help you on your way is really very, very important. I remember my days at the Hebrew University. I did not take calculus in high school, but I found a friend who did. Actually, pretty soon I found that his knowledge really ends at about the third lesson, and we were at the same level. but just having this assurance that I have next to me somebody who knows calculus and who can guide me was quite reassuring. And I overcame, of course, this impediment of not have had that education before.
All right, our last question for you, Meir. Very, very interested in the answer to this one. How does religion affect well-being?
So for many people, if you ask them what brings meaning to life, that is really beyond how do you assess your life, the evaluative well-being, to a meaning well-being. They will say religion, my relationship with the Lord. And also, my community in the church or the synagogue, because in addition to that connection to the deity, what you have is really a social group that is supportive. So one of the findings, for example, is that it is not praying alone that enhances well-being. It is praying in church or synagogue with others that is doing that. And then you get help, especially if it is a strict religion like Mormonism or Orthodox Judaism. If something bad happens, God forbid, a baby dies, people who are members of a church are likely to get help both in empathy and actual physical help. In Jewish tradition, when someone dies, there is a shiva. People sit for 7 days at home, and visitors come, and those visitors bring food with them, and they comfort the people who are grieving. And the people who are grieving see that they are among friends, among family. It is, it does not bring the dead back to life, but it really says, which they know, that death comes sometimes, not when people are in their 90s, sometimes when people are young, but we can overcome it together if we have family and friends. And so you can see this is another example where you might have an injury in one domain, say a child, God forbid, dies, but then having kind of surplus in a way in the friends and family domain, you can use that to fill in, to compensate for the injuries in the domain of family. It is, some people can do that with a formal religion. Other people do it with creating their family elsewhere. When we celebrate Passover, we read the Haggadah, but we skip the ones that are not to our taste, and we invite people who are not Jewish. It is a joy to have them. It is a joy. One of the traditions is that at the end of the Seder, the kids get gifts, supposedly for hiding the matzah and having them deliver it. And it is so endearing. I met a woman, the daughter of a colleague of mine, friend, who was at a Seder we had. Oh, God knows, she was 8. She's now in her 40s, and I reminded her that she got a Barbie doll as a gift, and her mother didn't care much for it because it is sexist and all of that. But she said, "Oh, so your family gave it to me. Boy, this was my favorite gift." And so you see how you create those kinds of communities that go way beyond religion to become really a part of religion, but really mostly family.
Very, very interesting. All right, Meir, that was our last question. This has been a great conversation. Really enjoyed the book. Congratulations on having written it.
Thank you so much. It is wonderful to speak with the two of you.
Always great to see you. Thanks again, Meir.
Thank you.